So we're going to be talking about DAOs. Everyone here probably knows decentralized autonomous organizations and how this is building our communities, working with governance. You know, are we using these properly? So guys, thanks for chatting with us. Unfortunately, we had two other members on the panel today, Maggie and Matt, and they couldn't make it. But we'll just share the information here. So guys, how's your day going?
Amazing. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. You know, I wanted to get you guys to break down for us, you know, just briefly, you know, how you're using DAOs in your project. If you could just give a brief explainer to the crowd.
Yeah, so we're an open source wallet. We plug into multiple different DAOs. We've been supporting KlimaDAO and a bunch of other regenerative projects in the space.
That's great. And
so we don't really plug into DAOs. We help DAOs do decision making. We have a platform that helps them collect ideas, deliberate on those ideas, and decide what to do with them all in one place versus Discord, discourse, blah, 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 blah. So that's what we do.
Exactly. Discord, is it a tool or is it a problem right now? It's changing very quickly. How many people here are using Discord and they're involved in a DAO? See a show of hands? Lots of people. And we've got other uses as well. So how do you guys view using Discord with the DAOs and seeing some projects that are doing this with token-gated voting and governance and others who are not? You know, how are you making sure that things are done right?
Yeah, I think token gating works quite well. I know a lot of different communities you get access to, and you know, I'd rather see it on a bigger level on like voting at scale. I think DAOs will really unlock once we're able to use them to vote past 10,000, 100,000, aggregate signatures in real time at scale. Discord communities haven't gotten there yet. They're really just chat rooms, permission-gated chat rooms. But yeah, we've still got a long way to go on DAO tooling.
I think it's a good question. And it's not a bashing on Discord. I think it's a matter of maturity of the project. I think before there is a DAO, there's often just a community. And a community needs something pretty informal to exchange quickly. And Discord does a great job. It's actually better than Telegram, in my opinion. But once you have that community and you have some degree of formality, I think you need to formalize and make the decision-making process more efficient. And frankly, going from Discord to discourse to snapshot to tally to whatever is a recipe for massive disengagement and loss of potential. So I think teams or people here that are part of core teams, it's really part of your responsibility to think about how do you professionalize this and remove the friction so that it's easier to attract talent into your DAO.
That's great. So you're seeing that we're currently doing this through Discord, and yet you think that it can evolve beyond that, because you know, how many times do we see where we're in a DAO or we're empowered by voting, and there's a notification, we miss it, and we don't get to do the vote, and all of a sudden, you know, Discord, if you're a DGen or if you're in a lot of projects, you are going to miss it. It's a fact, right? So how do you guys see that evolving? You know, is there anything that you have in the target for your projects to streamline this or to solve that problem that we're seeing now?
Yeah, I think Discord was not designed for DAOs. It was designed for gamers to like go into guilds and stuff and chat with one another. But if you look at what DAOs should be at scale, it's more of a governance framework. It's like, how are we going to govern nation states or you know, social networks at scale? And we need to build basically a fully new system for that. Yeah, I would like to see like a dedicated DAO stack for that. But what's limiting us right now is most blockchains don't have the cryptography to be able to aggregate signatures very well. So you have like 3 of 5 multi-sigs or like a snapshot. And I think that's really holding back the ability to do, like, imagine a Reddit feed where you could actually govern the entire treasury. You can't do that with Ethereum right now. And so once that happens, we'll start to see a lot of innovative new platforms coming out.
And Sushant with Sway?
Yeah, thanks, Ross. The way I kind of look at this is, you know, to make those decisions legitimate, you need to ensure that people had prior knowledge that decision was on the table. Like, if the court of law or Department of Justice wants to, issue you a subpoena, they have to physically deliver it and have proof of that. And I think that kind of a framework is what we should be thinking about, the builders in here should be thinking about in terms of smart notifications that determine that it was delivered at a certain position and whatnot. So we're thinking of those things, smarter notifications, things that are a bit more targeted, delegated voting so that you're not involved in everything, sort of adjusting the parameters of when you delegate and when you don't. The reality is we have less than 4% participation rates in these really, really large and exciting DAOs, and that's a travesty, in my opinion. And that needs to be changed through what we build.
So at the end of the day, when we're trying to empower our communities, we're trying to create more value for people, whether they're an investor or whether it's something completely decentralized and not tied into finance. If that's what we're seeking, or if that's what you're going after with your projects, do you think that will come from something that you build personally just for your projects? Or do you think we might see somebody that builds something universal that many DAOs can use?
I think what we need is probably a universal protocol that plugs it in. But with DAOs, there's kind of two ways about getting global consensus at scale. One would be, oh, welcome.
Welcome, Maggie, to the stage, everybody. This is Maggie from GMGN DAO.
Sorry, running a little bit late. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think one way to get global consensus would be to just give up our data to Facebook and all these companies and then have them come up with a solution. But if we do want to do global voting and consensus, it's going to require greater than 4%, engagement on voting. And, how often do we actually want to be voting on stuff? So potentially the way I see it happening is either through some sort of social network-like system where your likes actually contribute to some sort of vote of how you want, capital to be allocated within society. And that does need to be an open protocol, because if you do it on one platform, it kind of gives that platform too much control, which is good with, if we were to do a smart contract, at least other platforms and interfaces could plug into it.
Right. And for Maggie, if you can just share with the crowd about what you're doing with GMGN DAO and how that applies to, token-gated voting and things like that.
All right, thank you, Ross. So GMGN stands for Good Morning, Good Night, very Web3 term. So we're a DAO, a decentralized community formed together by builders and brand advocates and people who are passionate about, okay, for the e-commerce and for the consumer brands, how do we bring Web3 to it? To make it so that the community, the consumers, we're not just a passive consumer, we're also involved in the decision-making on these products. So we believe in, consumer products, from the coffee to the cereal to all the skincare products that you use. It should be good for you, and it should be good for the environment, and it should be fun and memeable. And so for our first product, we're launching a cereal with a Bored Ape on it. So we've actually partnered up with Bored Becky, who is a big influencer. Shout out to Ashley and the famed Lady Squad community. So we've partnered up with them, and that's going to be on our cereal box. And that is launching later this fall. So we have a whole Shopify website, and basically we token gate it. Meaning, if you hold our NFT, when you come to our Shopify website, you're going to get a specific discount, and you're going to get these cereal boxes shipped to you for free. And also, as you're a part of the community, every single product we sell, basically you can revenue share in the products by being part of our community and by being completing certain actions. So it's a really cool model of how do we bring this Web3 technology to the masses through the consumer products, through you purchase a product, it's basically like consume to earn, and also by being as part of our DAO, you can basically govern to earn. So if you guys anyone's interested in okay, this sounds pretty cool, can I learn more about it? The website is GMGN, so again, good morning, good night, supply.co. That's our website. You can join our Discord. We already have a lot of people from NFT NYC. Show of hands, who was at NFT NYC a few months ago? All right, couple folks, nice. So yeah, so we already got a lot of folks from there on our Discord. So that's a brief intro, I would say. Back to you, Ross.
That's awesome. So we've got a DAO working with Shopify. So I would assume that in the future, if Shopify is starting to do this, and there are other products working this, that Shopify, just for anyone here that wants to operate and use their token or their NFT with Shopify, like this is incredible. Things are moving very, very quickly for the industry. So if we're doing that though, and we're empowering the community, for you, Maggie, to catch you up to the other questions that we asked, with the voting mechanism, empowering your community, is that only going to happen on Discord, or do you see other visions for that?
Definitely, it is not going to happen on Discord. Yeah, I mean, we've all been on Discord. It's extremely hectic. We're actually hiring 2 different groups to manage our Discord. So in terms of the voting, I think Snapshot right now is a pretty good platform. I haven't learned about your platform in detail. But yeah, there are a few different platforms out there where if you hold a specific token, anyone can submit a proposal, and it's basically 1 token, 1 vote. That's pretty simple. So yeah, so to answer your question, it is not going to be on Discord. Discord is more about how do we engage the community. So like we have all these different levels depending on the contributions the members make. For example, if you just like comment more, if you ask like substantive questions, you're going to level up. And depending on what level you're at, you're going to unlock specific perks, such as like purchasing our products, and also even like influencing what's the next product we're going to be launching on the marketplace. And there's going to be like 100 different products that we're going to be building that's all owned by the community. So that's the whole idea behind this DAO, is that we're going to be building the next Coca-Cola or the next Unilever, the next Procter & Gamble. Like basically, we're going to be building this multi-billion-dollar business as a community and owned by the community.
Fantastic. So you heard it here first, everybody. These are our thought leaders running DAOs just at this conference, and Discord is not the place really where you should be running these things. If you're running a Discord channel and you've got official links, and going through to voting mechanisms, it's going to be too complex for the users. So we're looking for other ways to deliver this. Now, when it comes to growing your communities, are you doing this strictly through social platforms, or are there other mechanisms tied to your DAO that any of you are using to grow the community?
We're doing it through IRL events as well. So like in real person event, kind of like this. So NFT NYC, we were at Bitcoin Miami in April, and just a lot of press. So usually we actually have someone dressed up as a Bored Ape going around, and it's just like, it's fun, right? Like everyone kind of wants to take a picture with her, and basically that's one way for us to attract a lot of attention to the project. And then we introduce them to our Discord, they join, they learn more about it, they level up, and then they want to become part of the DAO.
It's fantastic. Anything else?
Yeah, so we're building the world's biggest DAO to fight climate change, and all you have to do is download Earth Wallet, and you get private keys that get you into the protocol. And it's open source, so all of the revenue from our marketplace and swap protocols go to Carbon Solutions. And eventually we do plan to build a fully scalable DAO model that could aggregate signatures at scale and have it go towards a good cause.
It's fantastic. So go ahead.
We're doing something a little bit different. We're talking to a very forward-thinking mayor in the U.S. to be able to introduce Sway as a proposal generation, decision-making platform for the citizens of that city, so that any citizen can geotag their ideas and create new policy prescriptions from the bottom up through the expertise that's in the community or in the in the groups that they're a part of, and those turning into policy over time. So we imagine in 10, 15 years, if we were back here talking, not only would DAOs be a thing, politicians wouldn't be a thing. People would be a thing, and they would be using tools to have more power in determining what the priorities are.
That's right. So what I'm hearing here is, if you're growing your community, if you want to tie that into a DAO, you want to empower your community, we're seeing a blend of in real life growth and online growth. So obviously we can grow communities with our social platforms, general marketing. A lot of projects actually have difficulty with that, but it's this, when we see people in person, that you're going to actually get that growth that you need. Whether you're doing it through a token, a wallet, an NFT, whatever you're doing, you're going to have to grow your community bigger than the actual amount that you're releasing. Sometimes we see NFT projects and they'll release or they'll mint with less community members than they're minting. So of course it's going to be a weak community. What have either of you done to ensure that you see strength in your community? Or is there a goal that you're striving towards to get that strength? Is there anything that you're designing to see that behind your marketing or these events that you're doing in person?
Sure. Okay. I think building actual utility is really important. I think NFT has really evolved. It's more than just a JPEG or a clip now. It's more than a PFP project. So our utility comes from the marketplace that we're building. And you can see, based on the volume of the products that we'll be selling, that's basically our product market fit. And once we kind of achieve that initial model, we're going to attract a lot of VC money and a lot of attention because everyone wants to build up that flywheel even more. So that's how we're seeing building it.
That's fantastic. Anybody else?
Yeah, we're focusing on giving. So we've partnered with SafeSoil.org and MakeSoil.org and basically just build their NFT collections so that it would bring their communities together and then show them how we can use crypto and NFTs to actually, mobilize the movement for climate.
And Soushiant?
Yeah, so again, we don't have a DAO ourselves yet. We will soon, but we empower a lot. And what I see, which is something to call out, is there's a lot of almost faith put into programmatic, transactional, codified decision-making, hoping that creates the required level of trust to keep people engaged. And that's complete bullshit, in my opinion. The reason people engage in a project is because he has a mission that is extremely exhilarating, or she has a mission to disrupt the world's largest FMCG, and people want to get involved. So I think if you're part of a core team involved in a DAO, you really need to think about what sustains trust over time. And it's actually people being involved in more consequential things over time. Maybe some of that is in the decision-making process. Maybe some of it's not codifying every decision. But what you want to avoid from things I've seen is you have a lot of missionaries sort of sign up for a DAO, and because of either the tools being used or the frictions of staying involved, they turn into mercenaries. And that's not good. We have to think about their experience much more thoughtfully.
I agree. We're looking for trust. So.
Could I just double down on a point? I thought that's a really good point. I think a lot of, if you look at the number of DAOs right now, I think there's something like 10,000 DAOs in the world, right? Which is okay, cool. We have a lot of people doing it. But if you look at how many DAOs actually have people voting on your proposal, it's less than 100. So I feel like we're kind of losing the whole notion behind why do we need a DAO, or how do we start one? And I think that's the point that he touched on. It's when a group of people who have a common interest really believe in something and want to create a change, and they want to do it more than just a messaging group. They actually want to pool capital together and deploy it. That's why a DAO is formed. And I feel like a lot of people kind of lose that vision. So for anyone who wants to start a DAO or who is looking to start one, tap into that first. What is a cause you can believe in for the next, let's say, 5 years? And, I have some car friends that are, super car lovers. They might want to start a DAO around, car rallies, which make a lot of sense. They already have that community there. So I feel like that should be the question that's on everyone's mind, instead of, oh, what tool should we be using? That's kind of the phase 2. So, yeah, let's kind of go back to the root first.
That's a really good point. And I think we're starting to see a bit of a reckoning in this space as well, because a lot of it was led with, let's just create a DAO and then figure it out after. Whereas now it's more there needs to be a purpose and a mission. Otherwise, it's not going anywhere. So definitely start with the mission.
So if you're building in this manner, if you're trying to put that utility in, what I'm seeing here is that here are examples of thought leaders running DAOs. You're all transparent with who's running them. You all have public profiles. You know, we know this is important in our industry to establish that credibility, right? How many DAOs do we see? You've got, it's either an NFT collectible, it's not transparent, you don't see who's running the project. It's not that different from how we would evaluate crypto projects, but how are you doing this with your content and with your own profiles and what you're putting out there to establish that trust?
Can I jump in? I think it's a really, really great point you mentioned. We kind of forget that the same humans that are in Web 1 and Web 2 are the ones we expect to come over to Web 3. And they're going to bring a lot of their kind of legacy expectations with them. In Web 2, like, you know, you have social media profiles. You can cross-check across various platforms to triangulate what you think of a person. Web 3, what's a XYZ420 wallet address do for me? Nothing. I don't know that person. I immediately distrust them because there's no face, there's no reputation system, there's nothing to go back and audit. So I think there are a number of features that need to be built into the Web3 experience, and we're certainly starting with that. We're working with various political scientists and others to try to design a really thoughtful reputation system based on a matrix. It shows what other projects you've been involved in, how you've participated, what contribution you've had to the success of certain proposals, how many risks you found, so that you earn a particular type of reputation that's interoperable, and it's something you can take from place to place that sets up a bit of trust for you. I think that's a really big missing piece.
That's great. So let's say this is all working great. You're checking all these boxes off. You have a DAO. It's operating properly. The community's growing. How is it autonomous? How are we working towards that? You know, it almost seems like it's been named incorrectly because there is so much human interaction and data being put on the blockchain. What's your vision for your projects in that way?
So we like to use this term a lot. It's called progressive decentralization. So I think anything that is new, such as this whole DAO concept, needs this progressive shift of decision-making power. So like right now, our core team is making a lot of the decisions. Why? Because if we give it to the community right now, there is no leader, it's going to collapse. So we need a group of people to kind of like set up the initial stage, like, okay, that's the direction we want to go. You know, if we want to build out all these different brands, who are the brand partners we're going to source? How are they going to deliver the products to the consumers? We'll be making all those like core decisions. But once we have enough people in the community that hold our NFT that are starting to vote, we're going to start shifting more decision power over to them. So in that way, the autonomous would start kicking in. Eventually, the goal is there is no core team. Everything is managed by the community. Like, we can all leave and the DAO will still be running, right? Like, that's really the whole point of smart contracts. And I would love to see that happen sometime soon. And I think that's why we need more people to at least start participating, understand, like, why do we need a DAO, or, like, you know, start contributing. Like, I think another big point is, with a DAO, unlike an organization, if you want to be a shareholder in an organization, you got to buy the stock. You got to put in money to like own something. But with a DAO, you just put in your time or your effort or your skill, and you can start getting a token reward. And that's really the beauty here, is that like, why don't we start getting everyone, you know, start getting excited and involved in this new type of organization, and then as it matures, then the autonomous part will kick in.
Yeah, I actually like real-time governance a little bit better because it's like a little bit faster. It's more progressive. We're moving governance systems ahead. If you look at the U.S. Constitution, when it was founded, it was actually anonymous founders who wrote the Constitution, and then they put in there. They wrote a bunch of papers about, like, you know, centralized versus decentralized, and the argument against decentralized was that you need an executive branch because otherwise accountability gets shifted so fast that no one really knows what they're doing or who's responsible for anything. So I think with even DAOs, having an executive like branch built into it is probably more efficient than having just like, you know, everyone decide what they want to vote on and what the proposals are. But then the real innovation is that you can do real-time consensus. You know, you could get votes passed in like the span of 4 hours or 4 minutes if you want. So that's the real innovation. Maybe that's the autonomous part that we're talking about. And the decentralized part is a little bit more fluid than you know.
I have so many thoughts on this. In a past life, I was a social scientist. And one of the pushbacks I get a lot from CEOs and things that we talk to is, are humans set up to accept distribution of power in an equal way? Do we naturally gravitate towards hierarchy anyways? I don't know. I think we're trying to prove that otherwise with the rise of DAOs and the success of them. But one of the contradictions I see, as you pointed out, Ross, is that there's not a lot of autonomous in DAOs right now. There's a lot of semi-DAOs or, you know, CEO DAOs, if you want to call them that. And that's okay. I think at the beginning of a project, you need a core team to steward something. And as you were saying, Maggie, I hear progressive decentralization a lot. It's almost like progressive distribution of responsibility for contribution. If people can do that, then you can naturally hand over part of the keys to someone else that's assuming that responsibility. And it takes time. One of the data points that when we were first starting Sway, we were researching a lot of the self-management community and the self-management practices and holacracy in particular. And there was a software company called Nearsoft in San Jose that we were interviewing very closely. And one of the leaders there was telling me, look, it takes about a full year for a new enthusiastic missionary recruit to come in and then know how to operate in a self-managed environment. Even after they've drank the Kool-Aid and you know, switched over, there's a cultural learning period and a set of interventions that, you know, we need to be mindful of before you hand over the keys. Otherwise, things go off the rails.
That's fascinating. So on to another point here. One of the things that we see obviously discussed a lot in the industry is cryptocurrencies and other products, NFTs, things that are classified as securities, or they could be classified as securities. As we relate that to a DAO or a token or an NFT, how important is it to, with your teams, what's your perspective in releasing these DAOs and having enough community involvement so that it will be not qualified as a security? What's your perspectives on that?
Yeah, I actually invented the term STO on a previous company that I built. But with security tokens, like if it's a traditional asset that you're issuing, just use the traditional ways. The technology that we have here is we should be in a design space, designing stuff that we could never do before rather than trying to re-implement the existing system. And so what we can do with this stuff is like come up with entirely new governance systems coupled to financial markets and social networks that it was not possible before. And I think that's the kind of design space that we should be focusing on, and maybe the SEC isn't the right people to be looking at that stuff, but that's another topic.
Sure. So we've spoken with our lawyers on this. I think what SEC looks at is called a Howey test for, you know, whether a token is a security or not. And there is a component of Howey test, which is, are you benefiting off the work of someone else? And I feel like the nature of a DAO is that, you know, everyone is participating and naturally you are benefiting off the work of someone else. However, you are also contributing yourself. So if you can kind of tie in the self-contribution with the token, there is an argument there that this is just you doing the work and you're really benefiting off the effort of yourself. So it should not be classified as a security because it doesn't satisfy that requirement. So I think a lot of it, yeah, like it is devil is in the nuance, but that is definitely one criteria that you can really dig into with your legal counsel.
I think this is a great place for metrics to be and thresholds to be defined by, you know, theoretical lawyers. This is why engagement is so important. If you can quantify how people have engaged, you can classify whether they should hold the security or your token should be a security or if it should be something else. So reputation systems, all this stuff are really, really essential to make that deviation clear.
So that's a really good point, because as the projects that you're in grow, as these DAOs grow, at some point you're going to have enough community involvement to stay within that and not be classified as security. How many people here are familiar with how the Howey test works for securities? A couple people, maybe 10 people. So most of us don't understand that. You know, there's 4 points that are made. Maggie touched on it and the team touched on it. It's an old, outdated test, but guess what? It still applies to money and finance. There isn't anything else out there yet. Should it be redefined? Yes, but it hasn't happened yet. So if you join a DAO, or if you join a project and they only do 1 vote a month, is that enough to have community involvement and not be a security? Maybe, maybe not. It depends. How would you feel if you invested in a project and then the SEC came back, shut it down, locked up your investment? It looks like you all have a good plan so that you have enough involvement that doesn't happen. But it's important that we educate everybody about that. So, how are there parts of your DAOs and your businesses as they evolve into DAOs that includes education? Not so much on the Howey test, but just how it should operate. Do you have education tied into what you're doing?
Absolutely. I think that is actually one of the bigger component of our day-to-day work is, okay, how do we bring people on board with, like how does the Web3 apply to these different segments? So we do like weekly AMAs, we do Twitter space. I think that's one way to educate. Social media, a lot of like Twitter posts. Also just like IRLs as well. Yes,
so we're almost wrapping up here. So just final comments from each person.
I think this is the best opportunity for open source to step in. It sort of exceeds the scope of a single company to design that education, but I think we need like a how to DAO, how to self-manage, set of curriculum that's accessible and generated by the best thinkers of this space.
Yeah, I think user experience is 100%. Like our priority is making sure that from the moment you create your keys to the moment you're voting in DAOs, it's very intuitive and you know what you're doing.
It's fantastic. So let's have a warm hand for Maggi, Soushiant, and Sukhveer. And you can look up their profiles. You can look up all
for
the
Ross as well.
Yeah, for Ross, for sure.
Thanks,
well done.
You can look up everyone's profiles on the web app. If you haven't been on there, you can check out their platforms. And one of the good things with DAOs is don't be afraid to research different DAOs and use each other's features. It's a complement. If there's a security feature or something being built in a community and you want to adopt it into your own community or recommend it into a DAO, do it. Make it better. Make a better project. But thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for your time.